Shokun. Welcome to Igor's Dojo, the training ground for honing your Japanese language skills. The topic of our video today will be the particles kara and node, which are used to express a reason or cause. We will be also taking a look at their usage, specifics, and on the subtle differences that exist between the two. As always, we will have a section with example sentences to further explain their usage and differences, as well as a section meant to show how to attach them to other words in the sentence that act as the reason or cause that we are trying to convey. Before we dive in deeper into the matter at hand, I will give you the basic outline of the two particles as you can see illustrated here. Both kara and node are frequently translated into English as because, but the nuance they have in the Japanese language is closer to the English so rather than because, as you will see in the examples later on in the video. The most important difference here that you should remember is that node is considered as the more polite option, and it is frequently used in the situations where the speaker has no influence over the action or his or her influence has been minimal, whereas kara, on the other hand, can be seen as the polar opposite, being often used in informal situations where the speaker has a lot of sway over the action or the action itself has been of the speaker's own doing. This lengthy definition, however, is a good thing to go on by in everyday conversations, and you will often find kara and node in written form that adhere to the nuances that I have just talked about. However, it is not uncommon sometimes to bend this definition a bit and use kara and node only paying attention to the level of courtesy, so to speak, of the conversation without caring about who had caused the action that we are talking about or who has influence over it. Now, in this section, we will take a look at the manner of attaching kara and node to other word types and the changes that come as a result of attaching these two particles to certain word types. Let's take a look at kara first. As you can see in the table, the only notable changes occur when you attach kara to nouns and na adjectives. In the case of the nouns, kara becomes dakara, and in the case of na adjectives, we need to remove, or more precisely, change the final na to da before attaching kara. However, in the case of node, the situation is somewhat simpler, having only to add na before attaching node in the case of nouns, as you can see in neko nanode. The plain form is used everywhere else in both kara and made without any changes or alterations. So, in the end, we have with kara, inu dakara, warui kara, shizuka dakara, iku kara. And in the case of node, we have neko nanode, hayai node, kirei nanode, kaku node. And before we take a look at the examples in the following section, here is the customary vocabulary overview so you can familiarize yourself with words that you might not know. You can pause the video here to examine the list, or you can always return to it once the video is over. I will give you a moment or two to study the list before moving on. Are you ready? Let's move on. Now, let's take a look at kara first. There is a pattern with it that you will notice as I read the example sentences out loud. As you can see, I have included the alternate translation below when kara is translated as so, and it is colored in green. So our first sentence goes as follows. 明日はスポーツの競争があるからもっと運動しよう。Because there's a sports competition tomorrow, let's practice more. Or the alternate translation, there's a sports competition tomorrow, so let's practice more. Our second sentence, パソコンは安いから必ず買います。Because that piece is cheap, I will certainly buy it. Or that piece is cheap, so I will buy it. Our third sentence, その映画小林さんにあげたいから京都へ買いに行きます。Because I want to give that painting to Mr. Kobayashi, I'm going to Kyoto to buy it. Or, once again, the alternate translation, I want to give this picture to Mr. Kobayashi, so I'm going to Kyoto to buy it. Our fourth sentence, 像が終えたいから今夜遅くまで働きます。Because I want to finish the statue, I will work until late tonight. Or, I want to finish the statue, so I will work until late tonight. And the final sentence, 車に触れないでください。修理工がもうすぐ来るから。Don't touch the car because the repairman will come soon. As you can see, kara is always attached to the plain form of words and usually put at the end of the first clause, but a reversal is also possible, as you can see in the final example. Usually, it is the first clause that expresses the reason for the action that happens in the second clause, to put it simply. Now, we are moving on to node. It follows the same pattern of giving a reason or an explanation within the first clause of the sentence for the action or event taking place in the second. Our sentences are, 時が少ないので吉田さんに助けます。Because there is not enough time, I will help Mr. Yoshida. Or once again, the other translation, there is not much time, so I'll help Mr. Yoshida. Our second sentence, 今日は雪が降るので電車が止まりました。Because it snows today, the train stopped. Or in other words, it snows today, so the train stopped. 仕事は忙しくなったので家へ帰れません。Because I'm busy with work, I can't go home. Or the alternate translation, I'm busy with work, so I can't go home. このお城はとても有名なので観光客がよく訪ねます。Because this castle is very famous, tourists often visit it. Or, this castle is so famous that tourists often visit it. And the final sentence, and the most complicated one of the set is, 来週の火曜日に田中さんの誕生日なので面白いプレゼントを準備します。Because next Tuesday is Mr. Tanaka's birthday, I will prepare an interesting present. Or, it's Tanaka's birthday next Tuesday, so I'll prepare an interesting present. So, in a nutshell, the safest way to deal with kara and node is to include a certain reason, cause, or explanation in the first clause, then attach node or kara to the plain form and give the action or event in the second clause that is being influenced by the first clause. As you can see most plainly in our first sentence, where we are giving first the explanation or the reason that we do not have enough time, and that is why we will help Mr. Yoshida in the second clause. Now it's the time to deal the finishing blow to the lesson that we have covered today. We have learned that kara and node are usually translated to and mean because, so, and even sometimes since, especially in the case of kara. We have also seen that they are attached to the plain form of words, with changes happening when you attach kara to nouns and adjectives becoming dakara, while node has only nanode in the case of nouns. Also, we have covered the differences in courtesy, with node being more respectful and formal, while kara is informal and or neutral in tone, There is also the aspect of influence or instigation of the action we are conveying. When the speaker is the one who causes or has control over it, kara is used. Otherwise, node is more appropriate. Also worth noting here is that kara is exclusively used to respond to why questions, node never, and that the order of clauses can be reversed with kara, and that is often the case, especially in the case of conversational Japanese. Otsukare-sama deshita, dear Shokun. We have covered today a deceptively easy topic dealing with an important aspect of the Japanese language, and it is a useful set of particles for furthering your language studies. Kara and node are best mastered through practice and repetition, but the silver lining here is that they are rather easy to remember because there is only a handful of things to watch out for when using them or practicing them. If you would like a review video of kara and node with examples for your own practice, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, dear Shokun, and I hope to see you again in the dojo next time. Sayonara!